When we look at who Jesus was as portrayed to us through the Gospels and even into Paul's letters and the other letters of the New Testament, what strikes us is Jesus as the teacher, as the healer, as the miracle worker. Often in different communities, in different positions, some of those particular attributes of Jesus were taken as a particular insight into who Jesus was. Now, you need to stop yourself there immediately and realize that that's not an insight into who Jesus was, but rather an insight into how the writers perceive Jesus. And that's why we look at Mark's gospel and we see Jesus the miracle worker. We look at Luke's gospel and Matthew's gospel and we see Jesus the teacher. In each of them, it was their reflection on Jesus rather than a reflection of Jesus that we need to hold on to. And therefore, when we look at Jesus in that way, when we look at Jesus as the healer or the miracle worker or the teacher, we need to always see that that was reflection. That wasn't who Jesus was, but rather how the writers perceived him to be. And they were perceiving him that way in a very special reason. The reason for seeing him that way wasn't so that they would be able to say, well, he was a healer, or he was a teacher, or he was a miracle worker, but rather that they use his teaching, or his miracles, or his healings to teach. So therefore, it was less about trying to give you a sense of Jesus' character and person, and far more actually wanting to do discipleship. Discipleship was the focus of what they were doing rather than the concepts of anything else. It wasn't about discipleship, or it wasn't about saying, oh, Jesus is a healer. Because if we do it that way, what it ends up is that Jesus becomes just another faith healer like many other faith healers. If we say he's a miracle worker, well then he's just another miracle worker, another magician. And so often Jesus becomes just the magician for us. The guy who's going to multiply our food, or the guy who's going to stop the storm whenever a storm comes. Sometimes we look at him as a teacher, and then he becomes just another religious teacher like Buddha or Muhammad or any of the others. When we see these as actual character references, often what it can do is it can narrow our perspective of Jesus. I believe that the writers of the New Testament were not trying to narrow Jesus into an acceptable connection for us. In fact, what I think is that instead what they were trying to do is to show by virtue of the things that Jesus did that he was far greater than what we can understand, or far greater than what we can comprehend. Because those acts of miracles, those acts of healing, those actual times of teaching were not really an encompassing of his character, but rather to teach us about our discipleship. In fact, the only way we get to know who Jesus is by living with him each day. All that the Bible wants to do is to help inform us in that living, helping to reflect other people's experience of him so that we can also grow in our experience of him on a day-to-day, life-by-life, connection-by-connection basis. Jesus wasn't a healer or a miracle worker or a teacher. Rather, he taught, he did miracles, he performed healings. But in order that we might understand who he is and we may grow in discipleship and understanding.